wanted to welcome you to Throughline and tell you about the organization. We're an art collective, so we rent the space. We pay dues that help support the expenses, the utilities, the paint, the food for the events, and we do all the manpower. We are, I guess we're working on becoming a nonprofit. I don't know if we're about that exactly, but we are a nonprofit. If you want to make a donation, we have a square in the back, and we're happy to for any support at any time. So all of those shows we have right now, it's a 22-month cycle, and each show is a 2-person show. They're all very different. If you were at the last month's show, you would know it's very, very different than this one. And one of those artists happened to leave her work in our kitchen space, and she also supplied the hummus. So if anybody wants to stay and have some hummus afterwards and talk about today's talk, we would love to have you. So I'm Cindee, and this is Sherry. She's going to introduce our speaker.
And this is Frauke Josenhans. I'm very, very pleased that she agreed to do this talk with us amongst her very busy schedule. I first met Frauke as I think I was in my second year of the block program at the Glassell School of Art, Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. And she was our crit one day, and that's when I first met her. Then, and you rate your crits, right? And I have rated her positively high.
Oh, good to know.
Then we reconnected maybe a year or 2 years later when she was a curator at the Moody Center for Arts at Rice University, and they acquired a couple of my small works for their permanent collection. So that's when we met again and had deeper conversations and studio visits. So at the Moody Center for the Arts, she was the curator for a couple of exhibitions. I mean, they were all good, but a couple of exhibitions that stayed in my mind as some of the more informative changes in my own career. And the first one was Hey Karaman, The Foreign in Us. I thought that was just a fantastic show. And then, of course, narrative threads, because I was starting to stitch and do what I do now. So those 2 shows really stuck in my mind. Frauke was previously a curator at Yale University Art Gallery, and held positions in Europe and the US, notably the Université François Rabelais, the J. Paul Getty Museum, and the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. She has edited and authored to English, French, and German art historical journals, books, and catalogs. Her books include Sheila Hicks, The Radical Vertigo Inquiries, fantastic book, and Have Karaman, The Foreign in Us, and many, many others. She has graduate degrees in art history and museology from the Sorbonne and the École du Louvre in Paris, and holds a PhD from the Aix-Marseille Université. She's currently the Deputy Director and Chief Curator of the Dora Maar Cultural Center.
Thank you so much, and I promise I'll speak English, so don't worry. Well, I was really pleased when Sherry and Cindee reached out to me and invited me to moderate the conversation today. And I mean, as you just heard, Sherry and I, we met a while ago, and so we've interacted over different projects. And Cindee, I think I first became aware of your work at Longdale, actually. So it was on my radar, and then we met again here at Throughline when you had another 2-person exhibition. So I was really intrigued, and knowing both of their work to some extent, I thought, well, I'm sure this will be something very different. And indeed, when I came into the gallery earlier this week on Wednesday, I think, well, Tuesday, Wednesday, to do a little bit of a tour and to discuss the event today. I mean, my first reaction was like, what is this? And do I need to take my shoes off? Because, I mean, as you all can see and have experienced, they really created this quite surprising ecosystem here in the gallery. I mean, using not only the walls, but also the floor, the ceiling, every available space, and really creating a sensorial experience in this gallery. It's not only visual, it really you walk on the grass, you feel the grass, you smell it. I was just saying, I think the smell was a little bit stronger a few days ago. But it really, I mean, you're very conscious about the living things in this space. But also then as you look around the gallery, you see that there's a juxtaposition between natural elements and manufactured industrial elements. So it's this whole ecosystem that brings together these two opposite elements, if you will, right? And that's sort of the inspiration behind the exhibition, because when we spoke about the show, you explained that the title was inspired by a book by a British author,
China Meeville.
Thank you. City and the City.
City and the City.
That then you changed to Circle and the Circle. And that book is, I haven't read it, but I know that you have read it and has deeply impacted you. It's about two opposite worlds. So hence your idea for the exhibition to really bring together elements that you would not normally associate. So maybe we can start this conversation by you having us tell me more about the book, about the ideas that you wanted to highlight in the exhibition, and then how all of this came together.
Okay. So a little correction. I actually have never read the book.
Oh, okay.
But I read his other book, which is called A Spectral Haunting, which is an history and analysis of the Communist Manifesto. I loved it. I thought it was a brilliant book. And then I started wanting to read more of his other books. And his other books he calls weird fiction. To me, it's just science fiction. Luckily, there was a TV show made of the City and the City, and of course, I'm right there watching it. So it's a story of two cities occupying the same space at the same time. And the citizens are trained not to see the other world. So occasionally, as the TV show shows, you see glimmers of what's going on, but you're not supposed to just cross over. You can, but you have to go through the politics of, your paper please, that kind of stuff. So it's you're born into this world that has two different worlds occupying the same space, and you need to be trained to not see the other. And that's where Cindee had this brilliant idea. I mean, it's right of the training us out of seeing the world in a specific way. You want to elaborate on that?
I have noticed, or I've observed, that we see things as being normal, and we assume that's how they always were. But they have been geological changes happen over such a long period of time that we don't realize that this is a change. For example, I'm from West Texas, and I grew up there always thinking that was desert and that's what it was supposed to be. Well, as I started learning more about ecology, I found out that West Texas used to be tall grass prairie. Mm-hmm. In fact, my mother met, when I was a baby, a gentleman who said he could remember when the grasses there were as high as a horse's belly. And I've since seen when they would be having cattle go through there, they would have to stand on top of the horses to see the grass. So that, I assumed it was normal. My parents at one time had 2 feet of dirt in their home, and we thought that was normal. So this idea of it really, and I'm not a science fiction reader, but I have seen that science fiction can be a great way into talking to people about the environment. So when she suggested science fiction and not having any experience in it, I was like, yes, let's work with that. That to me was really interesting.
So the title is twofold, right? It's that aspect of not seeing things anymore because you assume something is normal and it's always been there. But also because we both, and I less and Cindee more, deal with the environment, our changing world right now, but we approach it from separate, different perspectives. So the circle and the circle.
There's also, I mean, the way you adapted the title, there's obviously this, this reference to something cyclic, to something that repeats itself over and over again, right? I mean, you can think about the cycle of life, you can think about the cycle of production as well. So in both the, the manufactured world, but also in the natural world. And I mean, when you look around, there are all these elements that reference the cycle of living, of dying, of being reborn. So there's something, I guess, I would say almost hopeful in a way, right? And although I think you allude to obviously how in our time, our relationship to nature, to the environment has changed so much, and that we sort of accept this, and maybe we don't have to accept it, right? So to me, it seems this is almost an invitation, the whole exhibition, as you say, to unlearn, to rethink, to go back to a different approach. So was that something that guided you, or how did you approach the works that you made, and then how you installed them in the space? The sort of appeal.
Definitely was on our consciousness. Go ahead.
Well, I think for me, for my work, everything is really connected. It doesn't start that way. I started focusing on really Hurricane Harvey was kind of the entry point for me, and at the same time the first view was put in the endangered species list. Then I got an invitation from Lawndale to figure out what an ecological landscape looks like at an art institution that keeps them happy but also supports nature somewhat. And I just started learning it one thing, and then pretty soon it's the water and the plants and all these systems that are interconnected. So it's been a slow kind of hyper-focus in this area and the next. And this was kind of one of the first opportunities for me to put a lot of these things together. So I have the bees, I have the water, I have the dead plants, I have the place that we all come in contact with nature right now in our cities is the lawn. So I have for me it was an opportunity to show these things. I was also really fascinated to when Sherry and I first met and spoke, because I think we're the only two people that I knew at the time who believed that technology has a real role and can work in a positive way with ecosystems. Mm-hmm. And that to me was something that we could work with together. You already had worked on it. I had done work with it when my work with JR was very subtle. Not everybody noticed. But so we had that in common, and how often do you find that? It was like, wow, we should talk.
Yeah, and I think my approach, I moved through my art making quite fast, but I realized thinking about just a couple of days ago, thinking about what I would say, anticipating and guessing at Frauke's questions, what I would say, I realized that it's come to a point where all these ideas have more refined even more, and I could say now that I'm interested, my interest lies in that transitional period where forms are not quite resolved, but also not quite dissolved. And I was thinking how that goes back to my own experience as an immigrant, existing in that border line between the past and the future, remembering the past and imagining what future might be. So with our climate change and where we are now, I think that's where we are in that, I hate to use the word liminal, but we are in that liminal, we're standing on that knife's edge. We can go either side. And that seems to be, to define who I am. I've come to accept that, and not just a science fiction fan, but I like popular science a lot. That also describes quantum mechanics, that we live from moment to moment, and that linear time is actually a construct. So that's how the basis for a lot of my springboard of my work is feeling the anxiety, or less and less so, which is kind of a Buddhist ideal of detachment. Less and less so letting that insecurity bother me, but accepting that as part of life.
It sounds very Buddhist. So do you
and I'm not a Buddhist, so
do you mean the anxiety of this generation, of society?
of the world.
Of the
I
world.
think that is our reality.
Oh, for
Is
sure.
that
Yes.
insecurity and
Yeah.
that anxiety. Yeah.
For sure.
But I feel better now. I've come to terms with it.
May I say something in regards to the anxiety?
Yes, please.
So a lot of my work has to do with research and a lot of listening to people who, soil scientists. I go to their podcast and I'm in a lot of their Zoom meetings from all over the world, and they will tell you, we do not have an environmental problem, we have a social problem. And that, when I learned that, that's when I changed what I do, what my work is, because we can fix social problems. And so I think a big part of the anxiety that we have comes from where we get our stories now, is primarily from the news. And the news is about big industry and all these problems that we have. That's what we get cycled, another cycle, and listening. But the reality is things are fixable. The planet, when we just step back, fixes itself. All we need to do is step back. So when I work with universities and talk to kids who are so burdened by this anxiety that they're paralyzed, that they do nothing, I just start talking about the basic, simple things that you can do in your own yard. And when you have that power of action and you see what can happen, it's life-changing. And so I also tell them, so I'm a boomer, and boomers, we kind of created this problem, not intentionally, but we did not have the microscope so that you could see what living soil is until the 80s. So, we just didn't have the information. We have the information now, and these young kids, they have the information, and they have AI, they have technology. Technology can make changes quickly. So we're in this big shift of how things can be. And I give it to these young people, man, you get to be the generation that saves it. How amazing is that? What an opportunity. Like, I'd love to be you.
No pressure, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've given all the things are there. It's just taking the time to learn and think and not just do what the television and media tell you to do.
Right, so learning to critical question what they're being told. But I mean, what I also, what I find so interesting from what you both just said is, you're both Houston-based artists with really strong roots in the community. And Houston, I mean, it is such an interesting city, especially right now, because it is at the forefront of all these the big crisis that we're facing right now, the social crisis, right? Energy crisis, ecological crisis. I mean, it really is a city where these problems are lived, but also where solutions can be found, right?
Yeah.
And where through education, through exhibition, through art, there is this opportunity to raise awareness. And so I find that really interesting for those of you that I think that really comes through in your work, right? That you have this deep understanding of how the city has changed, and especially since you're from West Texas, but and you've been living here now for decades. It's both having that insight, but also then having the courage to try to spell it out in a way. And I can really see that in this show. I mean, how it references Houston in so many different ways. Maybe a little bit more subtle, not right in front of you, but we just look at the turf grass, right? And I mean, that's one of the elements that I really find so hilarious in a way. But it really is Houston. You have the real grass, and then you have the fake grass next to each other, right? It's just when you walk around Houston, that's what you see in the gardens. So there are these really strong connections to the city that we live in. So is there anything else that you think has living here and meeting, the artist community, meeting young people at universities, that you think that might have influenced your work to some extent?
That's an interesting question, because one that I never thought about. I think I've been denying myself to acknowledge that I am a Houstonian or Texan, like for a long, long time, because I think the city is quite ugly. They are beautiful areas, but you have to go and find them, and that's not true in other cities. It's like everything in my life, I think I'm at a point where I make work and who I am and my experience just naturally come through. So what you just said is like brand new to me. And I have to chew on that. I mean, I'm starting to do place-based art, like that work, which is, based in my backyard, in my big compost. But I did a couple of works when I went up to Oregon to visit my friend, and it was just after that big, I think they called it the Tax Day fire or something, right, Robert? Tax Day fire. I had harvested seeds. I think it was just not just a couple of seasons after the fire, but this grass seeds are everywhere. Like nature will always come back, right? And so I did one work that was based in Oregon, and then I used like my persimmon tree leaves and things that are just in my garden, but I never really considered that as Houston-based. So that's interesting.
And so maybe, Cindee, for you it's a little bit more obvious.
Okay, we're gonna see the difference in the circles here, because I love Houston. And for me, so this is the third time I've lived here. I worked really hard to stay here. I once told my husband's partner, who said, "Oh, we think we should transfer you to Russia." I'm like, "Well, I'm going along because I'm staying here." And it was a joke, really, and they didn't move us. So, but what I love about Houston, and it comes from perspectives of where you've lived, West Texas is not real pretty compared to what Houston is, if you compare those two. But also, I've spent most of my life in El Paso, which is a very low-income community. And that with that low-income community comes a lot of kind of low self-esteem. And when you want to do new things in El Paso, the attitude is a little bit of, we can't do that, or we're not the big city. And when I first came to Houston was the 80s. The Westheimer out there in the Galleria was, I think, a 2-lane street, and Houston just restriped it. And I thought, those are my kind of people. Like, let's just make this happen. So I love the mindset here. people have come from all over the world that live here. So it's this mix up of attitudes and culture and ideas, and that to me is just magical. I love living here. I love heat. I love water. And I love that people are really embracing the world that I live in. They're very embracing of other people. Now I know I can't live in the whole city, but I think Houston is, with our tropical climate and with people that when they learn things here, having contacts all over the world, that's kind of when I made that connection at Glendale really. Started seeing everything in systems. And it's these people systems and having these contacts. I mean, so now you're going to go to France and talk about hopefully that you met these women and that they're talking about these things. And some of the young people from the University of Houston here, as you go back to your classes, and then some of those kids are from all kinds of places, you know, talk about these things and see what they think about that. To me, Houston is, I mean, and Robin Wall-Kimmerer writes that the problems are often found, the solutions are found next to the solutions, like the medicine is found by the wound. And so I think that being the energy company in a way that kind of ruins and damages the planet, that also that solution can be found here. And I don't know, I think about that a lot, and it feels real to me.
So instead of West Texas, I come from a tropical and subtropical island, and it's beautiful, right? The nature that's always there in the background. It seeps in. It's the same humidity and heat, but the beauty of nature was just part of my formative years. Going up the hills, climbing the mountains, going to the beach, it's just right there. So to me, Houston lacked like that kind of beauty. I love the people.
But it has the potential. We have the climate for that, and I can often imagine the Allen brothers getting off their little boat, and the first thing it probably smelled was passion plant, and they would be like, dang, we could smell this. And then it all started kind of going away. But it comes back so fast. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's amazing to me.
Nature always takes over.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, I think I agree with what both of you say, right? I mean, also I have only lived in Houston for a few years, and it's, you know, there's a hidden beauty that's not obvious, right? It's not immediate. You sort of need to go and look for it, but once you see it, once you discover it, it makes the place really special. And maybe this is also a good moment now to talk a little bit more about the specific works in the exhibition. And Cindee, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the project, you know, that you started with letting the land, nature take over.
Oh, okay. The pavers?
Yes.
So that's sequel. So I'm starting I'm a year and a half into my 5th living sculptor. The first one was Lawndale. First 2 and 3 were at Lawndale. And so this is at my new studio. And I have my own building, and it's on a property that's owned by another artist, and there's 5,000 square feet of garden. And she had invited me to move out there, and that I could take on that garden, which was, if you look at the images on the left side, how the property looked when I moved in. And then Bea and Jake, Bea comes every solstice and equinox and videos it, and Jake comes and documents, and he did those photos. So I'll be working on it now for life, and I'm using, because this is an acres homes and more modest means and very simple processes, more seating, and so it's still been very amazing. And so I'm actually getting to figure it out over a much longer period of time, there was a lot of pressure to be successful, which Lawndale was supposed to initially just be 12 months, and then it ended up being 36 months. So there is more comfort knowing that I can screw up. I can maybe, you know, so anyway, so The last piece that I decided, I guess, or next to the last piece to put in here, it's called Sequel. If you take a look at it, if you're ever interested in seeing what ecological restoration looks like, I live for bringing people and showing them how to do these things. And I'm just taking principles that regenerative agriculture uses in rural America and applying them the best I can to an urban landscape.
And Sherry, although maybe not to the same extent, but I mean, you've been using your own garden as well, and especially your compost, played a very active role in your art making. So do you want to say a little bit about
I'll talk about that. It's called dead stock. And dead stock, I don't know how many of you know that term. Okay, yeah, you do. So it's usually a word that's formed of two words, dead stock together, and it's productions like fabrics or anything that cannot be sold from a store, and they try to get rid of it by giving it out free or just heavily discounted. So this is the early 2025, and that is my latest work right there. So I'm just going to do a comparison right now. So this is my interest in that thresholds, right? So I think back now, comparing the two, this is more representation on the surface from an artistic approach. That one, I buried a mulberry paper in my compost from 3 days to 10 days. Some sheets I crumble first, buried it, fish it back out, re-crumble it, put it back in. Some I folded in patterns and also went back and forth. I buried it, retrieved it, refolded it, put it back in. And it was amazing to see worms and insects actually interacting with the paper. So at that point, I thought that they are collaborators with me in making this paper. And so I work with mulberry paper most because I like the fiber. I like the how they could kind of merge into each other. And a part of my thinking a lot was about communities, how different communities live together, the mutualism. So that, I thought that was really cool. And sometimes I would pour homemade dyes onto it while the paper is exposed in the compost and then rebury it. So since I was working all 4 sheets at the same time I was thinking about the word dead stock, because the first time I heard it, I just loved it. And it was from my daughter-in-law, who's apprenticing with a bespoke fashion designer. And she's like, got all this dead stock material. I went, wait, say that word again. And she said, dead stock. I said, I love it. I have to use it in one of my works. So this is, again, a collaboration between the word and the material and the process. So I started to think about, so this is like surface exploration of how to live together of different things between abandoned technology or no longer used and things like leaves, or I was into slime mold, so the yellow is a representation of slime mold. So it was more representational, whereas that work I felt like I was really using the materials, letting the materials speak and letting the materials act as the artist along with me. And then I started thinking, because I was trying to fit the word dead stock with this, I pulled the words apart because, when you dump your kitchen scraps, like the vegetable stuff, it's in a way dead because you've used it up. But it goes into this compost, but it's, it really isn't dead, it's being revived. And then the idea of hypercapitalism entered into my mind also because that's what dead stock in terms of material systems cycle does, and thinking about where we are with a lot of the waste that we actually produce, like clothing. There's like mountains of that kind of stuff. So that's how that piece came about, and that is experimental, but also the beginning of a new series of work that I'm not here yet. So I'm really super hyped up about that.
About that stuff.
About working with Barry. I love that stock too.
But
I just recently acquired a bunch.
But I think what really, comes through both visually, but also listening to both of you, right? That nature in this exhibition, it's both, or in the works, it's both a collaborator, right? But also it is represented in different ways. And I really want to talk a little bit about the flying creatures in here. So they are all around us. But maybe, Cindee, you can tell us something about your piece.
Oh, okay. So I think it was after Harvey, so 2019, Harvey 2017, yeah. So I think it was 2019, the first bee was put in endangered species list. And I kind of like food, so I was a little alarmed. And I was working at a Hurricane Harvey project, so I kind of put it in my back pocket, but when I had kind of some free time, I started hyper-researching bees and endangered species. And for a year, like I'm binge watching bee movies on the 4th of July, I'm signing up on every entomologist's website just to start gathering information for a year. And then one entomologist says, maybe we're worried about the wrong bee. Wrong bee? Like what? There's more than one bee? Oh yeah, there's 20,000 species of wild bees. And actually the honeybee in the US is part of the problem because we have industrialized them. They normally live in rotting trees where they get antiviral properties and they don't have illnesses like they do when we put them in our handmade boxes and then on semi-trucks and ship them all over. But mainly because industry has spoken about them so much that we have unseen these creatures that really pollinate 300 times more effectively than a honeybee. And so I committed to the U.S. Geological Services website, has photos of everything that you could want, and they hire photographers to go into the natural history museums and photograph these bees. Now they're all dead and they have broken wings and legs and that kind of thing. So I tried to, I've been doing the 20,000 wild bees. My goal is to do 50. I've maybe done 50. I don't really know how to count them anymore. But I try to give them a life, and I'll spend, when I'm going to do a bee, I'll spend a week studying them. So that one in the middle, the blue one, that's Texas Samia. And without that bees, folks, we don't have blueberries in Texas. So that bee really matters to me. I won't talk about all of them, but they all have amazing stories, and it's been really quite a delight for me every time. Kind of now it happens and somebody will reach out and say, I really love this bee, would you do this bee for me? I'm like, well, tell me about your bee. And I'll learn about that bee. And so that's kind of how I've been working on them recently. But yeah, learn about your bees. They're amazing, and they have relationships with all the native plants here. And if you don't plant the native plants, they really struggle. And then also, if you do bee boxes, please only do them because you want honey. If you think you're doing them to help the planet, you're really hurting the native species. And there are studies now. I was saying this a long time ago, but now there are studies that show when they get rid of the bee boxes, the native bees do rebound. So it's amazing. You see, we think we're helping, all these people trying so hard to help, and then it's really hurting. So it's so important to get the right information, to use the language to get the right information out.
And I think it's also, it's visual aspect that you're so drawn to in this series specifically, right? Because they're quite striking. It looks like an abstract compositions, but also the scale, right? Going from a very small bee and then really giving it such a prominent spot and really sort of drawing attention to its importance for the ecosystem, for our daily well-being, our vitamin C intake, so for everything. So I think that works really well. And I really enjoy, and I'm not sure if this was intentional, but when you enter the gallery and you see the exhibition, you see these flying creatures that are not immediately recognizable as bees maybe, but you see it's sort of something living. But then you also see these hanging sculptures, and there seems to be a relationship between them. So Sherry, maybe you can say a little bit more about those almost kinetic sculptures, because they move quite a bit.
Okay, so Frauke reminded me that she has seen them before in my studio, but not in those forms.
No.
And I had told her, I don't know what to do with these. And I actually made them in 2016. That's a long time ago. And they were not the same. So so it was actually a work that's done since, for many years, like, what do I do with those? And then I walk away, what do I do with those? But anyway, so people have always thought that they were chrysalises. I don't know which one, but and I thought, well, that was kind of intentional, but I just like so they usually are hung in front of a window, so you get the natural light shining through the tall fabric, which gives them a shimmering aspect. And like just visually, I've always liked them, but it wasn't until this show and we had talked about what we wanted to do, I started thinking about my other works that I wanted to put. And again, like I said before, I found myself being more interested in the state of in-between, or the forms that are not quite resolved. And I was thinking about this work, Eve, which is my attempt at, I guess, thinking in lines of how we may be on the threshold or cusp of merging technology and nature, literally. And so I took the chrysalises, and built a form underneath that has styrofoam, and styrofoam and me are like, right? Like for most of us, and what to do with the styrofoams. And those are not the ones that you could just add water and melt. I mean, they would go to landfill. And so and they're everywhere. So I decided to kind of, I guess, just go further than Eve and say, what if someday, and we probably have styrofoam in us already, in our bloodstreams or whatever. So I was thinking about, like, again, kind of on that threshold of transformation, not quite resolved, and maybe unresolvable, I don't know. But it was just a test to see how that kind of thinking, where it would take me as an artist. So none of my work is resolved. I mean, that's still a big question. Everything is a question to me.
Everything is a question. That would be another great title for an exhibition. Before maybe we open it up to questions, I just wanted to mention something that I find really striking. I mean, both looking at your work, but also, it comes through as we've been talking. It's that you both sort of had a different career, a different profession before you really embraced your artistic practice, right? And I think both of you said something very similar, that I only came late to not being an artist. But I mean, there's also something to say about sort of everything else that you did before preparing it, because from everything that you said over the last, 30 minutes or so, your relationship to the land, and knowing so much about the usage of land, and then, becoming so interested in connecting research in how, the tools, equipment, and well, anything from grass to bees, basically. And same for you, Sherry. It's really all of your questions, your thoughts, your knowledge, be it in architecture or land development. It really fuels your practice, and that's what I see here as well. So I don't know if you agree or if you think differently.
No, I agree. I mean, I told Frauke the other day, and I've been telling everyone, I've been trying to run away from the rigidity of architecture ever since I retired, or ever since I realized that it was a restraint on my art making. I mean, I love art because I could do whatever I want. In architecture, you are doing what the client wants, and then you are doing what the building code requires, right? I mean, all these parameters that are put in place. But the fact is, I can't run that far from it. So what I'm finding myself doing is questioning that stability, the structure of, I guess, being an architecture, everything has to like hold other things up. Everything has to be stable. It's that strength versus fragility. I'm using vulnerable materials instead of like brick, concrete, like in architecture. So that's kind of running away, but still living within that, I guess, that system.
And what about you, Cindee?
Well, so everybody knows Sherry was an architect. So I spent my early career as a commercial real estate broker. So what I did was I did site selections for primarily small businesses, but sometimes large businesses. But what my real love was working with the small businesses. So once my family moved from the desert into the city after losing 2 farms, I worked in my dad's small retail feed store and Western clothing store. So I had a background in retail. That's the first time I came to Houston, and I did site selections for businesses. And so what that involves in is getting to know them, understanding their business, and then having an idea of basically the whole city and how they can take this new concept that they want to have one store, but then they want that expanded to be 50 all over the city, and then all over Texas, and then maybe France. So learning to how to see and start an idea from a small one, and learning how different people think has been something I've kind of always had to do. But after that, and I think this is a huge part of who I am as an artist, is I became a full-time mom. And if you want to impact behavior of your children, you catch them doing it right. And the first environmental show I was in was Sculptor Met Houston, and Volker, who many of you will know, came to my studio, and I was like, glyphosate, he says, Cindee, nobody wants to hear about that. You have to spin it positively. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know that as a parent. You have to catch them doing it right. You have to talk about the positive things. And he only had to tell me once. And so, I mean, sometimes you have to say the negative, but you also talk about the positive immediately. And I think seeing how to impact my children in a positive way and keeping a great relationship with them, I use that all the time. And because really what my work is about is reshaping society, how to reshape them in a positive way. I don't know, that's it. That's the truth.
That's a beautiful note to end on. But I think we would certainly welcome questions, comments, thoughts, observations. Anything that, yes, please.
I just more an observation / comment. I come down every day because I live upstairs. I come check on the grass. And I just find it interesting to see just how this whole place is it's an organism now. It really is. You walk in, you smell it, and you feel it, and you experience it. You see the grass, browning in areas, and also, during the opening where people walk, the paths, and this and that. And so it'll be interesting to see, from the beginning when, the city came in and, put this beautiful green, just pristine, to, where it in there. I think it's maybe a comment on human interaction with nature, and then nature's ability to, reclaim itself. And so I just want to say it's very interesting. And that's the thing, it's like, a show that at the beginning is one thing, but at the end is another thing. Well done.
Maybe you can just explain what's happening this thing.
Well, can I first say why the grass? Is anybody curious, like why I would want to put grass in? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? So turf grass has roots that are 2 inches. So that's how much carbon all of our lawns can sequester, and that's how much rainwater they can sequester. Our native landscape has 10 to 18 foot roots. Am I saying have native landscaping everywhere? No, but where you can, yes. So that was kind of this initial idea. Is it's another opportunity to talk about this lawn, which the title of this piece is Undermine. The lawn is an amazing opportunity for us all to do a little bit. But so in installing this, and in Sherry and I talking, one day we were talking, we should all be barefoot. And then I went home and I started thinking about them. I'm like, I'm not going to be barefoot. The chemicals it takes to make the monocrop the perfect lawn, I won't let my grandkids play in a lawn like that. So that was the initial idea. But the talk about water right now basically really is AI. So AI takes 17.5 billion gallons of water a year. Does that alarm you? Does it? So the real unseen thing is this landscape, this is 2 trillion gallons of water, 100 times worse than AI. And we can change that. That is so easy, but it's getting the information out. So if you think AI is bad, just go home and replant your lawn. And you don't even have to replant it, just let nature take it back if you don't want to spend money or labor on it, and not everybody does. Just let nature take it back. Go get some seeds. Walk through an empty lot. Walk through the empty lot at Lawndale. There's tons of great, amazing seeds there. Take a few and then throw them in your lawn. It'll fix it. It's amazing.
And so the grass.
Oh, where's it going to go?
Yes.
Yeah, so the nice landscape maintenance gentleman who installed it for me says that he can sell it later. And so he thinks he can because of the AC. Little does he know we turned it off all week. But so anyway, we'll see. At worst case, it could be flipped upside down and then the grass will decay and build biology. Somebody might fear some mulberry paper. So it will be used in one way or another. He assures me he'll help me get it out. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, Cindee, I love that term, let nature take it back. That's the thing, sometimes we don't have to do anything, we just let it be.
Let's learn from it.
Any other questions, comments?
What attracted you to monotype as opposed to painting or a similar medium?
Well, I do lots of things, and I've never really been about committing to a material. I'm more committed to the question of how do we reconnect with ecosystems and nature. So I took a few classes at LaSalle. One of the classes I took, he's now Alexander Squire. He's one of the Throughline members, but he, was teaching monoprints. And coming from the desert, I'm all about keeping my skin moist. And that applies to kind of everything in my life. And you clean your plexiglass after monoprint with oil. And I wanted to leave the oil in mine to keep my plexiglass moist, which is weird. And then the next time I went to work with it, it had this little film of oil on it, and I used watercolor and it dispersed. And I thought, wow, this might be really neat. And so that's my process. I just told you. And so I've never, Alexander be like, you should learn new things. Like, no, I'm just doing this. I like it like this. And so these were also originally monoprints with that same process. And I try to, in trying to let go, is like print them before they're really dry and have that wet accident happen. And those are my favorite ones when I just get out of the way.
Cindee, can you tell us a little bit more about the paper that you're using? I mean, it's everywhere. It's with the kids. It's also in the titles and the pictures that you printed and the way that you, I don't know.
Well, I wanted the photos that Jake took. I wanted them crinkled because I didn't want kind of the fighting against this organization. And you know, like I have my bees and I want them to, they're in a grid. We have something primal in us that makes us want to organize things, but I kind of want to fight against it. So I wanted a delicate paper that I could really crumple. So I went to Bayou Fine Arts and they showed me all kinds of paper, and then I didn't like them, and we kept experimenting, and finally this is a rice paper. I had, you know, bought 2 rolls now of it, so if anybody needs rice paper. And so I really loved it. Oh yeah, okay, good. And crinkled it up, and then I had this idea of this piece, and it's so scary to crinkle. You wouldn't think so, but you paid for the printing, you know, and it's a lot of work. But yeah, so I don't know, I just, I loved it. I love movement. And so then Sherry and I didn't want to do really vinyl for our signage, and we were struggling with something. I'm like, you know what, let's do this, I'll crinkle it. And
The story is, yeah, vinyl, you know, it's anti-nature. And it cost some bucks. So then we thought maybe I would write the statements on the wall, but didn't have a working good projector to help me. Anyway, we ended up just deciding to print our statement on mulberry paper or rice paper. But it's really mulberry paper. Crinkled it up, and then we decided to just make the text consistent with that. So it's being cheap and being lazy. That's
That's where the real art comes from.
Yeah.
But visually it creates a strong cohesion, so there you go.
I think it really helps kind of tie the conceptual part together.
Absolutely, I agree, yeah. Because I think also what's so interesting is that, you know, you come into this exhibition and even knowing both of your work, it's really hard to make the distinction in a way, right? I mean, for some pieces it's easier, but for others it's like, whose hand is this, right? So thinking even about little details such as, you know, wall text, which is a bigger detail, but labels, it's like, it's, you know, there's something that everything seems to be connected in this exhibition, right? And it really, it speaks to how you've both been able to combine your visions, your different approaches, but really bring together in the same space and to sort of create the same message. That's right. Any other questions?
One more, just as members of Throughline, you know, our model is, you know, you have 2 artists that show together, you know, can you speak a little bit more in terms of like, you know, how that kind of like set you up for kind of collaborating, you know, because it's a different model than if you're in a commercial gallery where it's like, okay, you can be showing in my gallery, you can be showing here, and then we'll create it. Whereas you have sort of that curatorial voice.
So we met like once a week for a long time, just talking, we didn't know each other at all. Weren't really familiar. I wasn't familiar with your work and she wasn't familiar, but we knew that we both were interested in nature because I, you know, used natural materials. So we actually didn't really talk about the show until much later. We spent our meetings getting to know each other. I lost my train of thought.
Well, I had invited Sherry to my studio. I was trying just to be nice and a welcoming member to get to know her. And then she mentioned she was interested in slime mold, and I was like, I'm really loving birds. Dung-loving bird's nest fungus is the mold I'm really into. And so I thought, oh, that could be really interesting. And so I was thinking of that. Of course, you know, you have this one idea, and that's not what it ends up being, but it's like the first step. But I felt like we connected about our feelings about the environment in so many ways. That was really fun, just once a week chatting about the things we agreed on, you know. That doesn't always happen.
And yet you both did the blood program at the Glassell.
Not at the same
I
time.
know,
Yeah.
but you both did it,
Yeah.
right? So it's interesting that then Throughline brought you together, right? And I think this idea of bringing artists together and to create an installation where those, those visions really merge and become one. It's really interesting and quite unique, and I think in this case really extremely well done. So bravo to both of you.
Thank you. I think I encourage you, if you don't normally come to the Throughline exhibits, they're all so different and fascinating. It's really interesting to see when you're forced in a very small space, how to work with another person. And I think it's really challenging in a great way, and stretches one's practice. I really love it. And like when my first exhibit with JR, I reached out to the person who I thought we were probably the most different visually. Mm-hmm. And it was one of my favorite experiences. So I encourage you, come check us out. We're really fascinating. If I do say so myself.
So I've done a lot of two-person shows before, but every experience is different. I would say that the experience with Cindee is much more intimate than any experience I've had on a two-person show before. So that may be what you are seeing, that intimacy.
Well, I think it's really most of the shows, not all of them, but they're two people coming together to make one show. And we have a little bit of, because a lot of your work you already had, and a lot of my work I've kind of recycled in different ways. And then the front pieces, right?
Well, part of that.
But so
That was true.
it wasn't like new coming together to create. So there was a little bit of already happening. But a lot of times it's, okay, I do this and you do that, and we're so different. So how do we come together? I think it's a great exercise in living in the society for one, but it's also fascinating to see the visual things that come out of that. I really love the organization. Jonas is one of the initial founding members. If you don't know Jonas, he's been asking questions. And comes and checks the grass.
You never know what to expect, right? I remember that for one exhibition there was sand on the floor, so who knows what the next time.
Yeah, who knows what it'll be.
All right, any other?
Who knows?
Any other comments? Well, thank you all for coming and braving the weather.
Yeah, we'll be there. There's hummus and chips for intimate conversations here. Thank you very much. Thank you.